Hey everyone, it's TB Shores. It's April the 28th, 2016. It's 9:02 a.m. I got up early this morning to try to get everything pulled up on my computer. I ended up using both computers side by side because there's just so much information. Um, I'm trying to let the Lord lead me and how to best present this because there's just so many things that could be covered here, so many things that take us down different avenues of explanation. So without the Lord, I can't even begin to know where to start. But what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the midnight cry uh, as we see it in Matthew. We're going to discuss the midnight cry as we see it in Exodus. We're going to discuss what came into play with that concerning May Day. When Carl had called and told me that the Lord had him digging into May Day and had told him May Day was the great cry. We actually see that phrase used in Exodus in relation to the midnight cry. So it all does tie in together. If you would just pray for me, that the Lord would just guide me to present this to in the simplest way to make it understandable and where it doesn't take an awful long time or a big long series of videos, because I know uh, these big long series, people kind of get tired of them. I understand that. Um, but anyway, I just always do as the Lord leads me, and if He leads me to do a long series, then that's what it'll be. And if He leads me to keep it short and simple, then that's what it'll be. But we're just going to count on the Lord to get us through this. But we're going to start back in Matthew 25:6. But we're just going to look at the phrase and how it is explained in Matthew 25 as to what the cry actually means here. Okay, we're going to flip back to my study. Um, Remember, it was in Matthew 25:6 that we saw at midnight there was a cry made. I had listed information below that helped to explain what was meant by this midnight cry in Matthew 25:6, where this cry goes out and then it says, "Behold, the bridegroom cometh." Okay, behold is drawing your attention. Okay, so it's not like a cry was made stating, "Behold, the bridegroom cometh." No, it is a cry that is heard that lets those that know who the bridegroom is that the time has arrived and the bridegroom is coming. So it's important to understand that this cry, as mentioned here in Matthew 25:6, it says cry, an outcry. It's from the word, from number 2896, which means cry out. Loud crying, done with pathos, which means great emotion. Clamorous screaming, shrieking, that is extremely boisterous, meaning loud, like a wounded person emitting utterly non-human types of sounds. So we can be sure here, because this is with great emotion. It's loud crying with great emotion, with shrieking even, okay? Like a wounded person emitting unearthly sounds. So from this, we can understand that something has taken place here. There is an event, there has something occurred that has brought great distress upon people to where they are crying out in this manner, where they are shrieking and sound like they're wounded, even to the point of emitting unearthly sounds, clamorous screaming. So when you take all that into consideration, you know there has been something major has occurred here, okay? Now, having looked at that, we're going to pop over here to Exodus chapter 11. And it says, Exodus 11:4. I hope you can see this good. Let me do something here. There. It says, and Moses said, thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon the throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of the beasts. So that's the firstborn of everything in the land of Egypt is going to die. Goes on to say, and there shall be a great cry. That's what Carl made reference to, as in the Lord had told him, Mayday is the great cry. So here, this is tying in now, okay? We see the midnight cry at midnight, okay? There shall be a great cry happening at midnight. So that ties us back to the midnight cry that we see in Matthew 25. And there's more that ties us to that. So it's not like I'm just saying, oh, this and that, let's just smack them together. There's a lot more that goes to this, but it gets into deeper study. So I'm just going to let the Lord lead as he will on this, because I don't know how much time we have. I don't know. The Lord knows how much time we have and what he won't spoke out until then. But the point I want to make here is, of course, what I just said. We see the midnight cry. We see it's called the great cry. And we see in Matthew 25, we have a midnight cry that clearly indicates that something very major has taken place, and it has caused distress and the people to cry out as if they are wounded, and they are even shrieking. Their screams are as if they're shrieking. So we know something really bad has taken place. Okay, as we look at what took place here, or what the Lord is saying is going to take place about the firstborn in the land dying, we can be very sure that this was a major, horrendous event that took place, because there was a great cry throughout all the land. So we see again a cry, a great cry, a midnight cry, because a major event, something that brought distress upon the people, has taken place. We're also going to look at this same thing over in Exodus 12. Exodus 12 says, starting verse 29, and it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the cattle. So that just reiterating what he said was going to happen. Here we see it came to pass, okay? And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And in my older studies where the Lord first took me to this, I have explained a lot of this in those studies. If you'd like to go find them, I don't have them handy. I'll try to remember to put the links in the description box when I have time to look that up. But we see here this great cry has gone out. The firstborn throughout the land has died. Okay, so we know that something horrendous has happened, and there was not a house where there was not one dead. And see, this is about the Lord giving us something to go by, as to understand what will take place when we see this great cry, this midnight cry happen again. I don't know if it will happen in the same manner, and it really doesn't give great detail of any kind for us to understand what event took place that caused the firstborn to die. I don't think in my studies I've not run across that. If anyone has any information on that, please share. But I'm just trying to make this connection with Matthew 25, where we see that some distressful event has taken place that brings this midnight cry and causes the wise and the foolish virgins to arise. They arose and trimmed their lamps. And remember, the trimming the lamps was about last minute preparations. And only those with the oil, that's something else I need to point out here. The wise, as we see, this is about the firstborn being smoked. We also understand with that it was the children of God, the children of the Israelites, that their firstborn were saved. Okay? They were saved by the blood covering on the door. So we can clearly see the connection with where we are now, because it is the blood covering of Christ that will save. And what was they saved from? The destroyer. And it is the blood covering of Christ that will save those of the Lord when the destroyer comes again. And that is what we are waiting on right now. It's important that we understand Exodus tells us many things about what's coming. We may not know the exact detail, but I think the Lord is going to lead us to understand more and more, even in a matter of days, as we get closer and closer. But one thing I wanted to point out, we see the firstborn of the children of God were saved. They weren't smote. They weren't affected by the destroyer in what occurred here in Exodus. So we have to understand that the firstborn of the time we're in now is the wise virgins. This is about the church. Remember, we talked about the wise and the foolish knew who the bridegroom was. So it's about those in the church, those that claim to know the Lord, those that know his truth. But it's only the wise that are taken into the marriage. The wise are the firstborn of the church. And by that, I mean the firstborn of the living, which is about the resurrection. They are the firstborn of the living resurrection. I guess that's how it came out. So I guess that's what the Lord wanted me to say. I don't know any other way to put it. But they are the firstborn of the church in the resurrection of the living. And this clearly ties the two together, because we see a midnight cry taking place here, and we see the firstborn of each being affected. I'm going to cut this off right here and hopefully get another one or two out to tie in some more things. I love y'all. Bye-bye.